Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jonathan Fisher. Well, there's no escaping it. LinkedIn is the number one place in the world to do B2B outreach. And the conversation here, as elsewhere, is usually centered around the social networking aspects of the platform for obvious reasons. But what about the powerful paid options for outreach on LinkedIn? Very few seem to have mastered that, but one of the few is our guest today. Aaron Zakowski is a B2B marketing expert. He's the podcast host of the SaaS Marketing Superstars podcast. He's also the founder of the Zamo digital marketing firm. And there with his team, he has been working with businesses of all types for more than a decade to help them accelerate their growth through highly effective Facebook, Google, and LinkedIn ads. And today, Aaron's going to share some of the most impactful and profitable ways you can use the paid marketing options on LinkedIn to generate pipeline and massively increase your sales. Aaron, fantastic to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Hey, Aaron. Hey, Jonathan. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. As I mentioned, there's not nearly enough insight out there for the paid tools inside LinkedIn. But by way of setup, tell us your background that's led to you having sort of this expertise you'll be sharing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, my digital marketing background started way back, around 2008, 2009, primarily with Facebook ads. At the beginning, I was one of the early people involved there. I was kind of freelancing, getting involved in a bunch of stuff, kind of got pegged as an early, Facebook ads expert. And somewhere around 2014, 2015, got connected with a guy named Clark Valberg. He turned out to be the CEO and founder of InVision, who gave us the opportunity to manage ads for his company. I think many people probably know InVision. And we had a great run with them for about two and a half years running ads over there, and just got me into the B2B SaaS world, got me into kind of lead gen, whether it's, sales-led or product-led growth within the B2B and SaaS space, and kind of just continued down that path for the past, 7-8 years now. We're primarily working on paid social for B2B and SaaS companies. Done a ton of Facebook ads over there, but in the last year or two, been getting a lot more involved in the LinkedIn landscape as well, because it's just such a natural fit for B2B marketers. The ability to target, your perfect ICP customer in there is really just unmatched by any other platform, even though Facebook, of course, still does work quite well in many cases for B2B.
Well, and LinkedIn has actually evolved significantly as a marketing platform, it would seem. How has it evolved, and what do you see as its current role in the B2B business development space?
Yeah, so I think for any company that's targeting a very specific B2B role, be that a specific industry, a job title, or a function within a company, especially when you're looking for slightly larger companies, if you're looking for the small end of an SMB, entrepreneur, single solopreneurs up to, let's say, 10 employees, you're going to find a whole lot of those over there on Facebook. But if you're looking for, the big mid-market enterprise type of companies, there's no better place than LinkedIn to reach those people and the decision makers within those people. I think the platform has evolved both as an organic content and networking platform, as it's, I think, initially meant to be. The number of people that are active there every day, the level of content that's being shared there, the ability to reach so many people within a targeted audience over there within the organic, social level of the platform is just getting better all the time. And I think anybody that's serious about B2B needs to think about a strategy, whether that's outreach, whether that's posting content and thought leadership and all that, or running ads, which is also could be, a very effective way to kind of put your strategy on steroids and reach and make sure that you're hitting your ideal client persona, on a broad level every day.
Well, looking forward to jumping in on some of the nuts and bolts. Before we get to that, for our live audience, a quick reminder, we are going to have our live Q&A, as always, at the end of the show. So go ahead and start posting your questions in chat, and whenever they occur to you. And here in just a little under half an hour, you'll have live Q&A with Aaron. And take it away and go make yourself some money for your company. So, Aaron, when we're looking at LinkedIn, as I mentioned in the intro, we're usually thinking of that as the social media, network platform that it is. The paid tools are far less well known. So I wonder if for the listener, you could start to enumerate what are some of the main paid options and marketing tools that may be less well known to marketers out there.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing that people just make sure that they understand about the LinkedIn ads platform is just how powerful it is as a tool for reaching, your exact target customer that you're trying to go after in a B2B sense. It gives us the ability to target by industry, by job title, by job function, by company size, whether that's based on estimated revenue numbers or based on employee headcount, as well as a number of other different targeting tools as well. But I think those are the core ones that most companies are using. And if you've got a refined product, you've got, a slightly higher ticket B2B product. So, let's say if you're selling something, generally I would say $10,000 annual contract value or more, LinkedIn can work really, really well for you. I think people are familiar with the in-feed ads. Obviously, image ads and video ads can be, extremely effective. But they also have tools such as conversation ads, which allow you to drop messages directly into people's inbox on the LinkedIn platform. That could also be, very, very efficient. And what's been exciting to me lately is the idea of using, video ads as top of the funnel, just to share thought leadership and thinking about things more of a blend of, demand generation or branding for your company, combined with a direct response or lead generation platform as well.
So I wonder if you could kind of walk us through. Let's unpack some of these and start to put some actionable steps in front of our listener. Pick any one of those if you would, Aaron, and maybe just kind of get us started. How would you begin a campaign?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, maybe I'm going to take a step back and talk about maybe one of the challenges that I know a bunch of marketers have, and one of the hesitations people have within LinkedIn ads. One of them is clearly the idea that people think it's a little bit too expensive, right? They think the CPM or the cost per thousand impressions is a little bit on the high side, and while that might be true, I think people often get a little bit short-sighted when it comes to cost over there. And where LinkedIn feels expensive is maybe on the cost per lead or the cost per click level, right? But when you think about the fact that you're reaching the right buyer that you're trying to reach, the cost per meeting or sales opportunity can actually be much lower there than it might be on other platforms like Facebook or Google Ads as well. So that's one thing to think about. And then the other challenge that we know a lot of companies have is they've tried LinkedIn ads. They've used generate lead gen forms, which is a little organic form that pops up when you click the ad to generate a bunch of leads. And at first glance, those leads look like they're super high quality. It's you hit the exact right company because that's who you've targeted. You've got the right job title within that company, so it looks like a really hot lead coming through. Now, the challenge in many cases is that with your initial cold audiences or top of funnel audiences that we might be targeting, those people don't quite know that much about your company or offer or your service yet, right? And so while they filled out a lead gen form, they're not really coming in with very much intent. They don't really know much about you, about your company yet. And what ends up happening is, and where a lot of marketers get frustrated, is those leads don't really turn into sales opportunities. Because at the end of the day, that's really what we're looking for. In many cases, people might, do a great job of nurturing those leads to eventually becoming customers. But I know that's one of the challenges that a lot of marketers have, and something we've been trying to put together some new strategies to overcome to a certain extent. And there's no one size fits all answer for any marketing solution for any company, because every company's got different nuances. But we've generally found is working a bit better these days is leading at the top of the funnel with a strategy of using video ads, because in those video ads you want to be having somebody in your company sharing your unique solution to solving the problems of your customers. So kind of thought leadership, going ahead and showing a personality behind your company right from the very beginning. And then what ends up happening is, as you're sharing your unique perspectives and your unique solutions for solving your customers' problems, is that the people who are interested and actually have that problem will very often watch your video. And by watching that video, they're kind of raising their hand and expressing their intent and showing that they're interested within the solutions that you have. And what's really great about that is LinkedIn gives you then the ability to retarget the people who have watched a significant amount of your video. Excuse me. And so what we're able to do then is at the top of the funnel, identify within our target audience, the people who maybe have more intent, who have interest in the offer that we have. And then if someone's interested right away and they want to convert right away, well, then we could link them straight over to a demo page, or we can consider at that stage using a lead gen form. But we don't want to be doing that aggressively. The goal isn't necessarily to expect a whole lot of leads at the top of the funnel right there, but rather to nurture those people through video content like that, and then drop them into a retargeting funnel. And then within that retargeting, we continue to nurture them until they're ready to want to talk with us, rather than pushing them on our time frame. Excuse me again. So essentially then on that retargeting level, the strategy you want to think about is testimonial ads, case studies, awards and recognition that your company might have won, continuing to show more thought leadership, more contents, maybe send them some blog posts or other solutions that let them learn more about your company. And then what happens just by consistently staying in front of those people who initially were targeted in your ISP audience and then expressed interest by watching a video, and now you're retargeting them for a longer period of time, maybe using conversation ads also dropping into their inbox, so it could be super effective at that stage in the funnel. You're going to see that a lot more not just leads, but sales opportunities start coming over to your sales team much more quickly. So it maybe takes a few months to ramp up before you start seeing those results. But what ends up happening is rather than forcing a bunch of people at the top of the funnel into leads that don't end up converting, and then everybody gets really frustrated because maybe they didn't even schedule the meeting in the first place, then maybe they no showed, and even if they got on a call with your sales team, maybe they weren't really that interested in the first place. So rather than forcing people to that unproductive funnel, have a little bit more patience, move people through the retargeting, and they know that people on their own schedule will end up coming through and scheduling calls, not because you forced them to at the top of the funnel, but rather because you've now nurtured them and created that demand where they actually want to talk to you. And those situations, you'll actually be quite surprised by how much your show up rate on meetings increases and your sales cycle is going to decrease, and you're going to see more revenue come from that.
It sounds really good. So are you against the idea of using lead forms as an early effort and then just nurturing? You think that shifts the energy in an unproductive way? You'd rather start with something that is more like a demand gen approach? Is that
it's a great question. Listen, the reality is, especially in the economy as it is today, our CEOs and CMOs and chief revenue officers and CFOs, they want results and they want them now. So we have to find that balance between going for the short-term result, but also being patient and having a more productive campaign that we put together. So, I'm not opposed to using lead gen forms, at the top of the funnel if we have to, maybe in tandem with the video ads. You can run a video ad, right? That has that demand generation perspective. But then if somebody clicks the ad, they end up going to a lead gen form. So that's one thing you can consider. The reality is lead gen forms do work better at capturing leads than sending traffic to landing pages. Our experience, and I think most other LinkedIn advertisers have the experience that for whatever reason, when a LinkedIn user clicks an ads and goes over to a website, they don't convert very well. You could have that same landing page, put it on a Facebook ad, and people over there on a direct response level, they're going to convert on a landing page much, much better. But if for some reason it just doesn't work very well on LinkedIn, so those lead gen forms are often your best bet for capturing lead. Again, the challenge over that situation is that if you're talking about a cold audience who's never engaged with your brand or your company or your website before, right? They've seen an ad, they've gotten just a little bit of content from you. They clicked it, they opened a form, they fill it out. They don't know much about your company at that stage in the game, right? They have very little context to want to speak with you, as opposed to if they visited a landing page, there's a lot more context. They've read the more of your copy. They've seen maybe some case studies and testimonials and social proof and maybe an explainer video or all these kind of things. That doesn't happen within a lead gen form, right? So the intent is a little bit lower. And that's why we like to rely more on the video ads to explain and talk a little bit more. No, a lot of people will ignore those and not want to watch the video, but that person is probably not going to be your buyer anyways, right? The person who has more intent to ultimately be your buyer is going to fall into that smaller bucket of people who will watch the video and then potentially click now, or maybe just watch the video and go on with their day. And that's fine, because we're going to make sure that we've got aggressive and valuable retargeting, hitting them up on a consistent basis, so that ultimately when they're ready, they will come through and book a demo or sales call, maybe refer you on, maybe talk about you in the future, but build that brand affinity so that they become the solution that sticks to their mind. Because ultimately, LinkedIn did a study recently and they established that in any B2B market, 95% of your ICP market and target audience is not, doesn't have intent to buy anything at any given time. So that means that of all the people you're targeting, if you're lucky, 5% of those people are actually in the market for the thing you have. Yet the other 95% might be in market at some point, in the not too far off future. That might mean 3 months from now, that might mean 2 years from now, right? But if you're building a business for the long term and you're looking for long-term growth, you need to just continue to build that brand. Even at my agency, where we specialize in paid ads for B2B and SaaS companies, we had a sales call that I took not too long ago, maybe it was a year ago at this point, where the prospect came through onto the call with me and said, hey, I downloaded an ebook that I put together several years ago. They'd been sitting on my email list, getting my newsletter periodically for 2 years, loving my content. And I had no idea that this person existed. They were just, another person, on my newsletter. But when I got them onto the sales call, they said, hey, I love the perspective you have. I've known for 2 years that, we weren't ready to be running Facebook or LinkedIn ads yet. But when we were, I wanted to come and work with you, right? That's the kind of nurturing that we need to do with our content. Get people into our communities, get people into our ecosystems, that we can continue to nurture them till the time is right when they are ready to buy. And because there's always that balance of people who are interested now and people who will be interested, later on.
Well, those are good metrics. It's been cited for many years and seems to be validated every time it's researched. That number you stated, maybe 5-6% of a given market is going to do something right now. Maybe with you. There's another potential, maybe 25-35% of a market that could be educated to a place over time. So that's a very powerful thing to keep in mind. I think there's an awful lot of attention on that tip of the pyramid. The problem is you've got this issue of budgeting and wanting to see some results. And so what is a typical time horizon? Are there some, I mean, I'm asking a very broad question, obviously,
Sure.
but are there some ways you can try to gauge what is a reasonable cycle from somebody that's never heard of you to where they're interested in having a conversation with you? Let's restrict ourselves to, say, B2B tech or SaaS solution type selling.
Yeah, so obviously it really depends on the product category. If you're selling something that's considered a bit of a commodity, let's say you're selling HR software, CRM software, something like that, the people who need software probably already have software in most cases. Getting them to change is a big hurdle to overcome. That's going to take a longer nurture cycle where you're really able to push on the pain points of those people to why the solution they might be working with right now isn't as good, and why your solution might be better. So that's going to take a much longer sales cycle. If you've got a more unique product that's somebody that can solve people's problems that they might not even realize that they have, well, then that might be more of, what I'll call maybe an impulse buy, where they might be interested because they don't have a solution right now, but they might have a pain right now that they didn't even know there was a solution possible for. In those situations, you might be more likely to get people coming through more quickly. And then also, in terms of time frame, other factors that are going to play into it is kind of what we alluded to, product market fit. How trustworthy does your brand seem, both from a visual point of view, from a social proof point of view? How many testimonials do you have out there? Do you have rankings on G2 or Capterra or other places like that? All these factors are going to go into the time frame that you could expect. But in reality, for a non-technical enterprise type of software, you can start to see, you might get some leads and sales come through even in the first month. That's great when that happens. It doesn't always happen. But I think within the 3 to 6 month horizon is a reasonable time frame, I think, for a lot of companies to start seeing some momentum and start seeing some sales movement that comes through. And again, depends on price points and product market fit and all those other elements. But I think it's realistic to see, a little trickle at the beginning, maybe, there is that 5% of people who might be in market at the given time when you decide that you've started to advertise. But before you start to see the momentum build, it's I'd say 3 to 6 months of organized retargeting and good content that you're pushing out to those people to educate them, hopefully even entertain them a little bit, and to provide value through that.
So how do you feel about using lead magnets, offering white papers or ebooks or the like? Would that be a good entry point, especially for a startup that no one's ever heard of and has maybe an educational piece? Maybe they're trying to elbow their way into a crowded place. How do you feel about that as a
Absolutely. So, like so many other things, it depends, right? I think content is a great way to lead. I think the question is, when you're saying lead magnet, I think you imply by that, gated content where you're requiring an email or something like that in order to get the content. It certainly can work well. I've seen many instances where it does, and I've seen many instances where it doesn't work well. I think where it's important to me to think about it is one factor would be how strong is your sales team when it comes to consistent follow-up, right? A lot of times we see someone downloads, they give their email, they download a PDF. Maybe they will or they won't even read that PDF. That's always a big question. And then how consistently is your sales team going to continue to follow up over the long term with that person to make sure that they're continuing to reach out, make those multiple touch points and all those types of things. There's people that could teach the sales process much better than I can. So that's the one factor there that goes into it. And then I think the other really important thing to think about is what is the nature of the content that you have in your lead magnet? I think when we're doing, an industry report often doesn't correlate to intent in your product, right? It's valuable. It can give value to the company. It could build brand. It can get somebody into your email list so that you can nurture them and follow up. And there's a place for that for a company that's willing to be patient and has that infrastructure in place. But the lead magnets that I prefer to lead with, if we're going on a content strategy, is where the subject of the lead magnet is very, very closely tied in to the pain that your target customer has and the solution that your company is able to provide to alleviate that pain for the person. So, in my case, it might be, a framework for running LinkedIn ads for B2B SaaS companies, right? if you're a B2B SaaS company that's interested in that, you're going to download that. That implies to me that you are interested in running LinkedIn ads for your company, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean you want to do it with me, but it at least shows me you are interested in this solution and solving this problem right now. Whereas, an industry report about the state of digital marketing within B2B doesn't indicate any intention to look for the solution that I might be providing. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think the favorite radio station adage from years ago comes to mind. WIIFM, everyone's favorite radio station, is what's in it for me, right? That's true on a corporate level as well.
Right.
It's got to really be a zinger that means something in a real terms to your audience. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
What the other thing that comes to mind when it comes to these marketing issues? So you think of like Google Ads, you could really create these wonderful dashboards, and you could have a really amazing view on attribution from the first click to a purchase and even beyond. That's become more challenging in certain ways, even in Google and then in LinkedIn. Is that a challenge? I'm one of the new people in the listenership today when it comes to managing these campaigns inside of LinkedIn. Talk to us about that, if you would, the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, absolutely. Attribution is every marketer's biggest headache, I think, these days, or one of our biggest headaches. I think we have to look at it as it's an art as much as a science these days. Certainly want to gather as much data as possible. And I'm an Excel geek. I want the data as much as anybody else and to capture all that data. But we also have to recognize that, it's not always possible. For example, you take the strategy that I said before, where you want to show videos at the top of the funnel. If you've targeted somebody with a LinkedIn ad and they've watched a video, it's very, very difficult for you to attribute that if they don't click over and fill out, a form on your website or fill out a lead gen form. If someone clicks, and whether it's a lead gen form, you can capture that data going into your CRM. If they click over to your website and fill out a demo form, you can capture that. That's great. But in so many situations, it's not that pretty. It's not that clean. Someone's going to watch a video. They might go over to your company page. They might click from there over to see a couple key employees' personal profiles. People click around all over the place. And that's actually another point. It's really important to make sure that your company page and personal profiles of key team members are also important to make sure they're optimized quite well, in terms of the content that you're promoting there. But the buyer journey today is, I say messy, for lack of a better word. People are going all over the place. It's true. If someone clicks a Google ad, that attribution plays very nicely, but there's a lot of false reporting over there as well. In many cases, we could find out that, somebody discovered a company because they initially saw a Facebook ad or a LinkedIn ad or something like that. And in the course of them doing a little bit of research, they went over to Google and they Googled the name of the company, clicked the Google ad. That was their last touch. Now, in most of their attribution, Google Analytics or other places, on a last touch basis, Google's going to take the credit for that sale. It could be, first of all, that might be false, certainly from the point of view who should really get credit. There's a last touch assist maybe that Google had, but I always think that the first touch in most cases should have the highest level of attribution attributed to it. So that gets tricky. And oftentimes, even if that first touch might be captured, most attribution doesn't really give enough credit there in that situation.
What additional tools do you like for marketing? So we got the video ads. There's paid in-mail. I'm going to guess from what you've said, you probably like that better as a follow-up and nurture piece than an initial entry point into funnel. Maybe I'm wrong. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so in-mail is in that term, it's generally the one-to-one messages that we might send through a sales navigator or a paid LinkedIn account. And that's certainly a great way to be able to follow up with leads and such. On the ad side of it, like I said, there's conversation ads, and that could be done in much more bulk. So we could set up a retargeting campaign in that situation where anybody that visits our website, anybody that watches a video ad, anybody that opens a lead gen form but doesn't actually complete it, we can retarget those people where a message shows up in their inbox. The way the conversation ads work right now is you can't actually interact back and forth other than these CTA buttons that are there. And each one kind of does like a choose your own adventure story where you could have that framework and send people through messages ultimately with the intention of sending them towards, a sales call.
So, and then are there other misconceptions that our listenership may have about marketing on LinkedIn? I wanted to circle back on that. You mentioned earlier that folks may have the idea that your cost of acquisition is going to go up. But you countered that, hey, so does the quality of the lead. What are some other myths that you might debunk when it comes to marketing on LinkedIn?
Sure. Definitely cost is one of the biggest ones that I would think about. I think the other one might be the speed in which people should expect to see results. It's not. I do not think of LinkedIn as a direct response platform, although there certainly are elements of that. And because branding and nurturing and demand generation, I think you need to play into any successful campaign. You need to just have that patience. Like I said, don't expect to run some ads, get some leads, see some sales, in the next 30 or 60 days. Like I said, some might flow through. There might be a couple, but in reality, in order to really nurture people through, that's going to take quite a bit more time. And then, I think that the nurturing capability is also something quite important. One little strategy I'll share with you that I know one of our clients is doing in terms of their flow is, as people come through and we generate leads off of the LinkedIn ads, we're capturing in forms, at least when we use lead gen forms, the LinkedIn profile URL of that user. So then we're using automation so that the CEO of the company and salespeople are able to automatically send that prospect a connection request inside of LinkedIn, because they're writing a very relevant message that implies, hey, you just signed up with our company, would love to connect and tell you more. The acceptance rates that they're getting of those people is actually quite high. And then shortly after somebody accepts that, then they're hitting those people up with a message in their inbox on LinkedIn to just try and continue that nurturing, building that relationship. And I think that's a really another important tool that people can be using to create a relatively automated flow. As soon as somebody engages in that conversation, then you want a real life person getting in there and answering them. And I think that could be another tool to kind of get people moving through that sales pipeline. And then the other one that I also really like, and again, that can be incorporated together with messaging, is using personalized video, where you just use a tool like Bonjoro. I know there's a bunch of others that are out there that allow just open up your camera on your computer or your phone, record a 30-second video, and just kind of send it over saying, hi, here's who I am from the company. Super excited to see you expressing some interest. Really looking forward to getting on a call with you soon to tell you more. Have a great day. That's all it takes, but it just creates that personal connection that people are just going to be more likely to want to speak with you.
I love that. I mean, we got to be more personal in this increasingly automated and AI-driven world. That
100%.
becomes an edge, especially if you can do it at scale. Well, I wonder if you could give us about 90 seconds or so to the listener on, let's say they haven't even begun to grapple with the paid marketing options inside of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What will your recommendations be for where they should begin?
Wow, where to begin? I mean, there's a lot to learn. I think the key is kind of start small, start paying attention to what tools are out there. Poke around inside of the ad account. Start to see what the availability is. But run small tests. I mean, I think there's a balance there, because small is relative. You can't really spend too little money. I think $1,000 a month is kind of the low end if you're just kind of doing a little bit of maybe retargeting. If you've got a little bit more budget than that, you want to go towards some of the video thought leadership type of pieces that we spoke about before. But it's it's trial and error. Make sure you're dealing with segmentation. Make sure you understand how the audiences work. But there's a lot of great content. There's a lot of really smart people on LinkedIn that are talking about LinkedIn ads and giving advice. I think that's how many of us are working and learning, is just sharing information on LinkedIn. There's a great community of people that are sharing that information. Unfortunately, I don't have one good resource that I can send people to say here's the place to go learn it. I think LinkedIn within their learning center does have some courses over there, which might be a good starting point for a lot of people.
Well, awesome. Well, it's been a great conversation, Aaron. It always goes by so quickly, and I guarantee a lot of the listenership would want to go further with you and maybe take advantage of your expertise as they try to generate more leads on LinkedIn. How would they best follow up with you?
Yeah, well, I'd love to meet anybody who has any questions, whether that's helping you out on a deeper level, or just answering some of your questions about LinkedIn or Facebook ads and B2B marketing in general. Best way to reach out to me would probably just be go find me on my LinkedIn profile, connect with me over there, send me a message. And would love to chat and maybe schedule a call and see whatever I can do to help you.
Excellent. And we will definitely put your LinkedIn URL there in the show notes so folks can follow up with you, Aaron. Well, the time has arrived. We're going to go ahead and jump into our live Q&A. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and post your questions in chat. This is Ask Me Anything time. With an expert, we're going to restrict it, of course, to LinkedIn lead generation, specifically the paid ads. And let's see what we've got here over in chat waiting for us. So here's actually one thing that I think is maybe let's talk about this one. So
Right.
Michael Filato says drive people to a discovery meeting, not a lead form. I'm gonna say I don't know about that. I'm not sure if that's always correct, depending on what we mean by that. What are your thoughts? What would be the best initial action to drive people to? I'm a fan of driving people towards something that's of value to them. If I'm driving you to a meeting with me, it feels like it's about me. That's my bias. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the way I understand that question or that statement, discovery meeting lead form could be used either for gating content, or it could also be used for scheduling meeting, right? Again, we're not trying to force people into meetings until they're ready. That's definitely something that we've learned, and I think a lot of other marketers have made a similar mistake. Ultimately, we are trying to drive sales opportunities, not leads, right? If a discovery meeting is part of that, then that's what we want to do. But it's got to be ideally on the time frame of the customer or the prospect, and not necessarily on the time frame of the company, who would love to have those, whether they're leads or discovery meetings or whatever you want to call it. We want them today, right? That doesn't mean the customer is ready to buy or ready to speak with us today. So, kind of the strategy that I've been speaking about today is about allowing the customer to come to you for a discovery meeting, a demo meeting, whatever you want to call it, on their time frame. And lead forms, again, if we're putting them there and retargeting so that someone can find them when they're ready, then that makes a lot of sense to me. If it's doing it at the top of the funnel just because we're trying to force people as that's the only solution that they can go with us, well, then I'm not as much of a fan of that.
Well, I understand. And I will ask folks in the chat section not to spam our chat. Michael, don't do that, please. I'm sure you have a worthy offering, but I'm tempted to send all my friends to spam your event. But don't do that, please. Okay, moving right along. That's a first here on Evolve Sales Live. I have to call out somebody for spamming our Q&A at the end.
You've arrived.
Hilarious. What's that?
So you've arrived. You're big enough that you're a platform for spam.
That's it. We're being spammed now. I love it. So now, and Levy actually shared my thoughts on this one. We spoke about it earlier, but let's revisit briefly. Levy says, "I've heard that gated content works best when driving conversions." Would you agree with that?
Honestly, I would say that good content works best for driving conversions, right? Gated or not gated, like I said before, there's a case for both. I think there's a great argument to be made for putting out that same lead magnet or just, pillar piece of content that provides a ton of value that you've put effort into, and maybe not gating it. If you've put all that energy into creating something that you think delivers value and that it will move people towards, a stronger affinity towards your product and wanting to consider it, well, then really the goal should be to get as many relevant ICP targets to read that piece of content as possible. And by gating it, you're very severely limiting the amount of people that are actually going to consume that piece of content that you've put together so much. So the case for gating, the case for not gating it, I guess I would say first, is you're going to get a whole lot more eyeballs on there and more consideration. Now remember, you could always retarget anybody who sees it ungated, right? If you're sending people to, let's say, a website, that has your content on there, you can retarget everyone that visits that. Even if you want to make it as a PDF, you can't retarget a PDF very well, but you could offer that PDF for free on a landing page, and then everybody that visits the landing page can download the PDF. One thing I've also seen is, you can give it for free ungated, but then give them an offer on the page that, if you'd like to get a PDF version of this content, you can enter your information here. And that could work quite well. Now, the flip side of that, the argument for gating it would be that you're capturing the person's content information, and your sales team then has the opportunity to go and follow up. And in that situation, like I said, it can work very well for a lot of companies, but it also doesn't work for a lot of companies. I think you need to figure out what's right for you and make sure, first and foremost, that your sales team has the process in place to be able to continuously nurture the people who have entered their information into your gated form, because you're going to have a smaller number of people come through that who you can follow up with versus a much larger people in ungated content that will consume that content.
That makes sense. Here's a great question from Steve ROI Brown. Steve, I like that handle. He's asking, what are the top 3 things you feel those who excel at using LinkedIn for business do compared to the rest who are struggling?
All right, great question. 3 things. So I would say one of them, make sure you have a great product market fit and sales process in place. If those things aren't there, then no marketing is going to do terribly well. LinkedIn is really about educating consumers about building that demand through content. So making sure the product is there and that you can do sales properly is important. I think the other one would be make sure you've got great content in place. And by content, I mean it could be blog content that educates people. It could be having the right testimonials and case studies and social proof in place. But think about ourselves in our buyer journey, all the things that we might want to see before we're going to pull the trigger on, a big purchase, like, an expensive software, something like that. Make sure that the brand is strong, the content is strong, we're educating people, we're using video to build brand authority, thought leadership, all those things. And then the third thing I think I would say for people to be successful is, I'm not going to get to four things here, patience. Make sure that you don't expect to see results too quick, and you've got the budget, and that you and your leadership team within the company have the patience to recognize we are going to work on this for at least 6 months, be invested in it with an expectation we might not see results in the first 3 months, but we're going to hope to see kind of get that flywheel spinning, so to speak, and starting to see an increase in results towards the end of the 6 months, which will only continue going on. And then the fourth thing I'm actually going to add to that list will just be curiosity. That as you're running campaigns, you're testing different things, you're learning, you're segmenting your audience as well to make sure that you're seeing, does targeting this job title versus that job title, or job titles versus job functions, or companies, larger companies versus smaller companies, which one works and converts the best, and you can get the lowest cost sales opportunity, and ultimately revenue that comes to your company. And then I think the way that I would measure the success to that, to the extent possible, is what is your cost in ads per dollar of opportunity created, or even better, what's your cost per $1 of revenue generated. I think those are the best metrics you could be measuring the success of a campaign.
Excellent. Well, David Gecki has, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly there, David, a good follow-up question. I think he wants to tap into your wider expertise across the range of social media marketing. And he's asking, what's your typical return on ad spend versus on the Meta properties? LinkedIn versus Meta, I guess. So head to head, are you seeing some, maybe give a comparison if you would?
Yeah, that's a longer conversation, Facebook ads versus Meta ads. I'll say the short version, and honestly, I don't know if I'm in a situation to fully answer the ROAS question, because working in an agency, we don't always have full vision into the full sales funnel to understand long-term how many sales are being generated. What we do know is that our clients are often very happy in increasing our spend and asking for more. But we don't always get to see really what's happening on the true ROAS. So unfortunately, I can't fully answer that question for you. It's unlike e-commerce, where $1 in today should be $2 out tomorrow. B2B sales cycles being longer, not being tracked by pixels, all these other things makes it much more difficult to us to see that in a short run. I'd say that the big difference that I see in Meta versus LinkedIn, though, Meta tends to be more of a direct response platform. We tend to be able to generate leads much more quickly over there. People will click an ad on Facebook or Instagram, they'll go to a landing page, they'll fill out a lead form, and they'll schedule a meeting much more quickly. For whatever reason on LinkedIn, like I said before, people don't really click from LinkedIn over to a landing page and convert very well. It could happen, but you're going to see the cost per lead, to be quite a lot more than if you're using like a lead gen form, for example, like I said. The big benefit, of course, though, on LinkedIn is, though, the people you are capturing are higher quality, bigger company leads or opportunities. Not to say that we can't get those on Meta as well. We had a client that we were working with over the past year where they had a $85,000 annual contract value product. They were looking for companies with 10 million plus in revenue, which wouldn't be the typical thing you'd be expecting to find in Facebook or Meta, right? But if people don't know, about a year ago, Facebook rolled out what they call B2B company size targeting. So they've got 3 different buckets of company sizes that you can target. I think it goes from 10 to 200 employees, 200 to 500 employees, and 500 plus employees. And by layering those on with our general interests and lookalikes and demographic things within Facebook, we've actually been able to generate a lot more leads from these larger, mid-tier companies that this company is looking for. And in this situation, it's true, most of the leads that came through were not qualified based on that criteria of $5 or $10 million plus in annual revenue, but about 15 to 20% were. And the way that just worked out, that the math ended up working out that their cost per meeting, even if it came out to $1,000, $1,500, and if they were closing 10% of those, let's say, it was still a $15,000 sale, but an $85,000 annual contract value, that was golden for them, right? And in that situation, we spent about $1 million over the course of a 12-month period running ads for them. And I believe they kicked out about $4 million in annual recurring revenue on the back of that. So Meta works great as well, but we know LinkedIn also can work phenomenally because you're just making sure you're only targeting the right people. Didn't exactly answer the question that you asked, but hopefully it was still beneficial.
Yeah, that's some great insight. And I was very surprised to hear you say that that could be effective in that space on Facebook. So
Yeah, definitely.
could have a range of things going on. Juan Paniagua is asking a great question here. What are some of the most important metrics or analytics businesses should focus on when measuring the success of their LinkedIn marketing efforts? I mean, there's a lot to look at. Can you maybe help them narrow their focus? And I kind of want to pile on a little bit and say, especially for folks that are early on trying to get started. I'm assuming a lot of our listenership may be in that spot.
Yeah. See, early on is tricky because you might not have as much going on in terms of the more sophisticated setup, let's say, in your CRM or analytics software and things. But there's also for early on a certain advantage of you're probably not doing as many things yet, and therefore you can kind of trust your gut a little bit. So let's say you're doing a little bit of SEO, and then you start running some LinkedIn ads, and you start getting some sales or at least sales opportunities and meetings coming through. It shouldn't be too hard to get a sense by talking to people and maybe just asking for self-attribution of like, hey, how'd you find out about us on a sales call? Or maybe including a question like that on your lead form. You should be able to start to tell a story or paint a picture of what's been working for you over there in terms of the quality of leads, entering that into your CRM, et cetera. So I think that's a lot easier when you're at an earlier stage, just because you're not doing as many things, right? It does get trickier, of course, when you start having SEO and Facebook ads and Google ads and LinkedIn ads and outreach and all the other things. But as I mentioned before, I think one of the key metrics people should be looking for, obviously making sure that we can at least get an estimate of attribution. Again, it's always imperfect. And then ultimately trying to calculate, like I said before, what's your cost per dollar of opportunity? And then even better, what's your cost per dollar of revenue? If we know that we can generate, for, $1 of revenue for 85 cents, well, that's great, right? Because there's usually going to be some residual benefits that come out that aren't attributed as well. So the profitability is probably greater than the 15% that might indicate over there. Same thing if we're thinking about opportunities. We've had clients who've come to us and said, here's your primary KPI. We want to generate, $1 of opportunity at 20 cents because we know approximately what our close rates are going to be. And so there, we've got a target over there to say, and obviously the client's got to do a good job of applying an expected opportunity value to every lead that comes through the CRM. But working together with them, we would want to see, how many leads came through from a given marketing platform or ad platform, and then tie those over to the opportunities and just, become simple math at that point. And then you want to dig down deeper. So we're not just looking at it always at a platform level, LinkedIn ads as a whole, but maybe on the campaign level or the audience level or even the ad creative level to understand which things are working better, what deserves more budget, what should be shut off, et cetera.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm going to take a host privilege and close out Q&A with a final question of my own.
Sure.
And I'm staying with that early on listener. And when it comes to LinkedIn marketing, maybe even also someone who's starting up. So we have a lot of SaaS company listeners, and it's pretty challenging to know how to budget. It's just probably the question marketers themselves, like yourself, probably hate the worst, right? How much do I spend? What's my budget? But you're forced to give advice, and you've done it more than once, I can guarantee. So what would your good advice be to somebody who's trying to get rolling with this? They're making a 6-month commitment. What are some best practices on how they can even budget realistically around that?
Sure. So I would say realistically, you want to have at least $5,000 to $10,000 on the low end. If you just want to run some retargeting, obviously you do less than that. But I would say if you want to really get data, really test the platform, with a sense of security that you've done it right. Give yourself a solid $5,000 to $10,000 of budget. I mean, that's still on the low end, really, for I think what most people should be doing on LinkedIn. But then the other piece of that is also just make sure you have somebody that's doing it that knows what they're doing, right? Because you can go and run, $10,000 a month for 6 months. You spent $60,000, but if the person who was actually organizing that and creating your strategy and day-to-day optimization didn't really understand the platform well, then you're really not going to see better results. And that doesn't mean the platform didn't work. It just means you didn't do it very well. So I think it's important both to have a big enough budget so that you can really do it effectively and efficiently, but also to make sure that there's a person there running it who understands how LinkedIn works, and that, like we said before, you've got the patience to see it through and to give it the best chance of success, and that you've got the content in place as we spoke about before.
Well, it's been a great conversation. You've added a ton of value to our listenership, Aaron. I'm grateful to you for that. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Jonathan. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and a big thanks to our listenership as well. You folks make it what it is to be here on the Evolve Sales Leader. And what a privilege I have to come and right along with you learn so many amazing and great techniques for growing our businesses better than we have before. I want to thank you for being part of it and help us continue to grow. Bring a friend next time. We're here at the same time, same station each week. And if you're enjoying the content that we provide and want to check us out, anytime you need a podcast to listen to while driving or working out, go to the Evolve Sales Leader, wherever you like to get your podcasts. Big shout out to our sponsor as well. We're powered by Overpass. Overpass.com, the best place you could possibly go to get SDRs, BDRs, full cycle sales professionals, anybody that you need to work the phones to help you grow. It's free to open your account, and you don't pay a penny until you find 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10 rock stars to add to your team. Check them out at overpass.com. That's going to do it for this time. Once again, Jonathan Fisher, I'm signing off. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.